You work 40 years, save diligently, and retire broke. What if this isn't failure, but the system working exactly as designed? Everyone knows the retirement formula. Work for decades, contribute to your 401k, maybe get some company matching, and compound interest will make you wealthy by age 65. This sounds logical because financial advisors, your HR department, and every retirement calculator tells you this is how normal people build wealth. But there's something that doesn't quite add up. Why do people who follow this advice religiously often retire with barely enough to survive? The retirement scam works by convincing workers to hand over their money to Wall Street while believing they're building personal wealth. Meanwhile, the financial industry extracts fees from your contributions for decades, and the wealthy use completely different strategies to build generational wealth. If this kind of systematic wealth extraction disguised as financial planning interests, you subscribe to Prof. Zhang Explained and share this video with someone approaching retirement, they need to understand what's really happening to their money. The system creates the illusion of wealth building while ensuring most people remain financially dependent even after a lifetime of work. When we say save for retirement, we mean totally different things depending on your economic position. For working people, saving for retirement means putting money into accounts you can't access for decades, hoping the stock market performs well, and accepting whatever modest returns the system provides. The money gets locked away in complicated financial products managed by people you'll never meet. For wealthy people, saving for retirement means acquiring assets that generate income immediately. Real estate, businesses, investments that pay dividends and appreciate in value. They build wealth that works for them right now, not just someday in the future. Think about your retirement plan for a moment. Do you actually control where your money goes, or are you just hoping someone else invests it wisely? This explains something curious about retirement advice. The same financial institutions that sell you retirement products also manage the money you give them. They collect fees, whether your account grows or shrinks, whether you retire comfortably or struggle financially. The difference isn't just about investment strategy. It creates fundamentally different relationships with money and time. Working people sacrifice current financial flexibility for uncertain future security. Wealthy people build current income streams that provide both present comfort and future wealth. But here's where it gets interesting. The retirement system doesn't just capture your money, it captures your time and career choices for decades. Consider how the 401k system actually functions. You're encouraged to contribute a percentage of every paycheck to accounts that someone else manages, using investment strategies you probably don't understand in markets you can't control. The money disappears from your life for decades. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals typically keep control of their capital and make investment decisions based on current opportunities and market conditions. They can adjust their strategies, move money when needed, and benefit from immediate returns on their investments. The psychological framework is completely different. Working people are taught to see retirement as a future reward for current sacrifice. Wealthy people are taught to see their investments as current income sources that happen to also build future wealth. This creates what we might call the delayed gratification trap. Working people put money away for 40 years and hope it grows enough to support them later. But inflation, market crashes, medical expenses, and management fees often destroy much of what they've saved. When working people retire with insufficient money, they're told they should have saved more, started earlier, or been more disciplined. The possibility that the system itself is designed to extract wealth rather than build it rarely gets examined. The retirement scam becomes particularly sophisticated in how it handles risk. Working people are told that slow, steady contributions to diversified funds are safe and responsible. But this safety often means guaranteed mediocre returns that barely keep pace with inflation. Wealthy people typically accept more immediate risk in exchange for higher returns and greater control. They understand that the biggest risk is not having enough income, so they focus on building multiple revenue streams rather than hoping one retirement account will be sufficient. Consider how fees function within the system. Working people pay management fees, administrative fees, and expense ratios on their retirement accounts for decades. These fees compound against you. A 2% annual fee can reduce your final balance by 30% or more over a 40-year period. Wealthy people typically structure their investments to minimize fees and maximize tax advantages. They often pay lower effective fees because they have more control over their investment structure and can negotiate better terms. Same financial system, completely different cost structure. Working people pay fees for the privilege of having limited control over their money. Wealthy people pay fees for services that directly increase their wealth and control. But there's something even more insidious happening here. The retirement system doesn't just take your money. It shapes your entire career and life decisions around serving this system. The promise of employer matching and tax advantages keeps people locked into jobs they might otherwise leave. You stay at companies longer than you should, because leaving might mean losing unvested retirement benefits or disrupting your contribution schedule. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals typically structure their work lives around maximizing current income and building assets. They're not trapped by retirement benefit schedules or contribution limits because their wealth building happens outside these systems. Do you find yourself staying in jobs longer because of retirement benefits, or do you have the freedom to make career decisions based on current opportunities? This creates what economists might call the career trap. Working people organize their professional lives around retirement systems that require 40+ years of consistent contributions. This long timeline makes them more predictable, more compliant, and less likely to take risks that might disrupt their retirement planning. Wealthy people often organize their careers around opportunities that can generate significant returns quickly. They're not bound by 40-year timelines or worried about disrupting retirement contributions because they build wealth through other methods. The retirement system also exploits something economists call the sunk cost fallacy. Once you've been contributing for 10 or 20 years, it feels impossible to change strategies because you've already invested so much time and money in the current approach. This psychological lock-in prevents people from recognizing better opportunities or questioning whether their retirement strategy is actually working. They continue contributing even when the returns are poor because they feel committed to the original plan. Wealthy people typically avoid this trap by regularly evaluating their investment strategies and being willing to change approaches when better opportunities arise. They're not psychologically committed to any single long-term strategy. The system becomes even more sophisticated when we look at how it handles market volatility. Working people are taught that market crashes are temporary setbacks that will recover if you just wait long enough. This keeps them invested, even when their accounts lose significant value. Wealthy people typically have enough diversification and control to protect themselves during market downturns. They might even profit from crashes by buying assets at reduced prices when working people are forced to sell. But here's where the system reveals its true nature. The retirement industry has created what we might call the dependency cycle. Working people contribute money they can't afford to lose into accounts they can't access, managed by people who profit, whether the investments succeed or fail. This creates a perfect wealth extraction mechanism. The financial industry gets your money immediately through contributions and fees. They invest it in ways that benefit their other business interests. They charge you for the privilege of this service. And if the investments perform poorly, you bear the losses while they keep the fees. The system also benefits from what economists call information asymmetry. Working people are given simplified advice about retirement planning. Contribute regularly, diversify, think long-term. But they're not told about the complex fee structures, the conflicts of interest, or the alternative strategies that wealthy people use. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals typically have access to sophisticated financial advice, private banking services, and investment opportunities that aren't available to ordinary retirement savers. They receive detailed information about how to structure their investments for maximum benefit. But perhaps the most cruel aspect of the retirement scam is how it handles the final payout. After 40 years of contributions, most people convert their retirement accounts into annuities or withdrawal schedules that provide modest monthly income for the rest of their lives. This final step often involves giving up control of the remaining balance in exchange for guaranteed payments. The financial industry captures whatever money is left when you die, and your family receives little or nothing from decades of your contributions. Wealthy people typically structure their assets to provide ongoing income while preserving capital for their heirs. They maintain control and ownership rather than converting everything into consumption-based income streams. The retirement system perpetuates itself through what we might call success theater. Working people are shown examples of individuals who supposedly retired comfortably through 401k contributions and steady saving. But these success stories typically omit crucial details. The comfortable retirees often had multiple income sources, inherited money, or benefited from unusually strong market performance during specific time periods. The system also benefits from survivorship bias. We hear about people who retired successfully using traditional retirement planning, but we don't hear about the millions who followed the same advice and retired in poverty or had to continue working into their 70s and 80s. Consider how different the retirement conversation would be if people understood the actual statistics. Most Americans have less than $100,000 saved for retirement after decades of work. Social Security provides poverty-level income for most recipients. The typical retirement account balance is far below what's needed for financial independence. But instead of questioning why the system produces such poor results, the conversation focuses on individual failure. People should have saved more, started earlier, been more disciplined. The structural problems with the retirement system remain unexamined. The retirement scam also creates what we might call the time arbitrage trap. Working people give up money they could use today in exchange for money they might have tomorrow. This time delay allows the financial industry to profit from the spread between what you contribute and what you eventually receive. Think about it. You contribute money when you're young and need it most for housing, education, starting a family. The money gets locked away for decades while you struggle with current expenses. Meanwhile, the financial industry invests your money and keeps much of the returns through fees and spreads. When you finally get access to your money, inflation has eroded its purchasing power, fees have reduced the balance, and you're often forced to withdraw it slowly rather than having access to the full amount. Wealthy people typically avoid this time arbitrage trap by maintaining control of their capital and generating income from their investments immediately. They don't sacrifice current financial flexibility for distant future promises. The system becomes particularly insidious when we examine how it handles economic cycles. Working people are encouraged to contribute consistently regardless of market conditions. This dollar-cost averaging approach sounds prudent, but often means buying high during market peaks and continuing to buy during crashes. Wealthy individuals typically have the flexibility to adjust their investment timing based on market conditions. They can increase their investments during downturns when assets are cheap and reduce their exposure during overheated markets. This timing difference can result in dramatically different outcomes even when the total amount invested is similar. Working people end up buying assets at average prices over 40 years. Wealthy people can buy assets at opportune moments when prices are depressed. Have you ever noticed that retirement advice never changes regardless of market conditions or economic cycles? The retirement system also exploits what psychologists call the endowment effect. Once you've been contributing to retirement accounts for years, those accounts feel like wealth, even though you can't access the money without penalties. This psychological ownership makes people reluctant to question the system or consider alternatives. They feel like they're building wealth because they can see account balances growing, even though they have no control over the money and limited ability to benefit from it currently. Wealthy people typically maintain more liquid and accessible forms of wealth that they can use immediately if opportunities arise or circumstances change. The retirement scam works because it offers hope while disguising exploitation. Working people are told they can achieve financial independence through steady contributions and compound growth, while the financial industry extracts fees and wealthy individuals build wealth through completely different methods. The system maintains itself because working people who discover alternatives often lack the capital or knowledge to implement different strategies. By the time they realize their retirement accounts won't provide financial freedom, they're often too close to retirement age to change course dramatically. Meanwhile, each new generation of workers gets the same advice. Contribute to your 401k, diversify your investments, and wait 40 years for compound growth to work. The cycle continues because the advice sounds responsible and the alternative, building wealth through ownership and active investment, seems too risky or complicated. But here's what makes a scam particularly effective. It co-opts the language of wealth building while delivering the opposite result. Working people are told they're investing and building wealth and planning for the future when they're actually funding a system designed to keep them financially dependent. The behaviors that actually build wealth, acquiring income-producing assets, maintaining control over your capital, building multiple revenue streams, are often dismissed as too risky or complex for ordinary people. Can you think of anyone who became truly wealthy by contributing to a 401k for 40 years? The retirement scam has successfully convinced working people that wealth building is something that happens slowly in the background, managed by others, with delayed gratification as the primary virtue. Meanwhile, wealthy people build wealth actively, immediately, under their own control, with current income as the primary goal. And perhaps most remarkably, the system has convinced people that questioning retirement orthodoxy is irresponsible or unrealistic. Working people who suggest that 401k accounts might not be the best wealth building strategy are often dismissed as financially naive, even though the evidence clearly shows that traditional retirement planning rarely produces financial independence. The retirement industry has also created what we might call the expertise illusion. Financial advisors and investment managers are presented as experts, but most are actually salespeople earning commissions from the products they recommend. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals work with fee-only advisors who are compensated based on asset growth rather than product sales. They receive advice aligned with their interests rather than the interests of financial institutions. The retirement system also exploits anchoring bias. Once people are told they need $1 million to retire, they organize their entire financial strategy around reaching this figure instead of questioning whether the framework makes sense. Wealthy people think in terms of cash flow and income generation rather than account balances. They ask how much monthly income their assets generate rather than focusing on total net worth. The retirement scam also benefits from complexity bias. Complex retirement accounts with multiple investment options seem more legitimate than simple strategies, but complexity often serves the financial industry more than investors. Consider how tax advantages are marketed. Working people are told tax-deferred growth is beneficial, but this often means paying higher rates in retirement while keeping money locked away during years when they need it most. Wealthy people often prefer paying taxes currently and maintaining liquidity and control. They understand that tax deferral isn't always beneficial, especially with restrictions on access and investment choices. The system also creates a diversification trap. Working people are taught that index funds are the safest strategy, but this essentially guarantees average returns minus fees, which may not build real wealth. Wealthy individuals often build wealth through concentrated investments in businesses or real estate. They can control and improve, generating returns that far exceed broad market averages. Does your retirement strategy actually give you any control over your financial future? Or are you just hoping external forces work in your favor? The retirement scam works because it tells working people they can build wealth through steady contributions without taking risks or learning complex strategies. But wealthy people understand that building significant wealth requires taking intelligent risks, maintaining control over investment decisions, and actively managing assets rather than passively contributing to managed accounts. The system perpetuates itself because working people who achieve modest results are held up as success stories, while those who struggle are blamed for inadequate saving. The retirement industry has created a narrative where passive investing is responsible and safe, while active wealth building is risky. But traditional retirement planning depends on factors outside your control, while active wealth building allows you to respond to changing conditions. And perhaps most insidiously, the system has convinced an entire generation that questioning these financial orthodoxies is somehow irresponsible, when the evidence clearly shows that traditional retirement strategies rarely produce the financial independence they promise. The retirement scam represents perhaps the most successful wealth extraction mechanism in human history, convincing working people to voluntarily hand over their money for decades while believing they're building personal wealth. Hit subscribe if you want more analysis of how financial systems serve different purposes for different economic classes, and share this with someone who's been told that slow and steady wins the retirement race.